Let me start off by saying, how many of you have heard it's the teacher's fault? Many people say it's the teacher's fault, including politicians. And really, it's not the teacher's fault, it's the students' fault. They're failing themselves because they don't try. America's culture is to not try. When a high schooler, the weekend hits, they think, what party can I go to? And when the holiday comes, they think, what can I do with my friends that day? Kids in Korea, they're happy for weekends off because they get to study. Very different cultures. So, and students, they don't try in school. I mean, if you've ever been in a regular class, Spanish, some students don't try. They play Temple Run on their phone, listen to their iPod the whole time, text. I was in Spanish class last year. One kid came in, put his head down the whole time, for the whole period. Didn't look up, just refused to take tests. So, they don't try, and that needs to be fixed. And many of you probably think that, oh, what if they can't afford the easy routes? You know, what if they just can't afford it? Well, that's where the community service comes in. They can do community service, and some of you might think, why do the parents do it? Well, the parents do it, so they can't just put it off on the kid and say, oh, go ahead, you do all that community service. If the parents have to do it, then they're going to push their kid to do better. And that's one of the reasons students don't do well, is because the guidance in their home. Parents don't really care what grades they have, so it doesn't matter to them, so they just let their kids do whatever they want. The parents are put upon to do community service. If they don't want to do that, they'll make their kids do better, so they don't have to do it. And this will increase kids going to college in two ways. Some kids who don't try, maybe they'll think, oh, hey, I can do the work, you know? I can do better, I can go to college. And plus, the kids who do get fined, when they go to, it makes a scholarship for students who really can't afford college, but they really want to go, and that would help our economy because there are lost wages in kids who don't go to get really good, well, not really good careers, but jobs. And this would start in 7th grade, with 6th grade acting as a probationary period for them to get their act together, you know. And 7th grade, it starts in 7th grade because that gives them time to get to high school for what really matters, for them to get their grades up. And some of you may think low-income areas, they have bad teachers, what if the students are getting fined because of bad teachers? Well, it's not really the teachers so much. In low-income areas, their parents, they're low income. They don't really care about what the students do in school or what their children do. So they just really don't, it doesn't matter to them. So they'll get fined, but since they can't pay the fine, they'll have to do the community service, and that'll make them make their kid try harder. So I yield the rest of my time to questions.
Wow, how much time do we have? Sorry, your hand first.
I come from a low-income area, and I was wondering that if you know the home situations, I mean the kids who don't pay attention in your Spanish class or whatever, you know why they don't pay attention, and you know why they don't care?
Well, I would assume
Or you just assume it's because of the parents?
Well, I would assume it's because they have no guidance. The parents are from low-income areas, so they obviously didn't go to school. They probably don't see the importance in it, so they don't really care what their kids do. So I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I think that's the general reason.
Well, I have high honor roll in my school, and I'm pretty sure my parents raised me the same way as my brother. Yeah, my brother's been kicked out of 3 schools in the last semester. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I'd say then it is the student's fault, but I would say your parents haven't disciplined him enough. I know that's kind of personal, but I think the parents would have to really set him straight, you know, because it is his choices, but the parents have some kind of impact on it.
So what do you say to students who really do work hard in classes and they're really maybe not intelligent enough to take that class? Or they don't do as well just because, but not necessarily because they don't work hard. What do you say to them?
The people aren't intelligent enough? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Or, right. They don't do well even though they work really hard.
Well, I think a C is the basis for that. I mean, an F, you just don't try at all. D is like, you try a little, but you don't really think. I think if you really just do work hard, you can at least pull a C, especially if you talk it out with your teacher, get some help. So I think you can get that.
Okay, so what if
I just wanted to ask you, it says in section 2, special needs students are exempt. Is it actually talking about people who are in special education programs, or is it talking about when circumstances arise that would get in the way of the student succeeding?
Maybe if there's a family tragedy that they could have like a little time off, but I'm talking basically about students who have learning disabilities or like those types of things that would infringe upon their learning. They wouldn't be taken or put upon by that because they have no control of that.
Now, is this for project course or just semester?
Semester based because it's the ones that count.
By special needs, you mean like learning disabilities or someone, for example, with autism or like
Yes.
ADD?
ADD, there's medication for that, but there's no medication for, say, autism. So ADD is not exempt from it.
Okay, you guys in the interest of time, we only have 30 seconds left anyway. I'm going to absorb the remainder of the time. Thank you. Okay, do
I'll be calm.
an amendment. Okay, okay, for what section is this?
It covers a few of them.
Okay, it says community service in section 3 becomes the penalty for all parents, and in section 1, if and only if they are above the poverty line.
Yeah.
Do you see this proposal? Do you see this amendment as friendly or unfriendly?
Can I explain why I need why I oppose this?
Gosh, yeah, because if you oppose, we gotta debate it.
Okay. I oppose when it says if they're above the poverty line because the whole point is for the parents to get the students to try more in low poverty or not low poverty, low income areas, and if they're exempt from that, then they won't have to do it. And so what I say is they can do the community service. If they think they have no time to do it, then they no one works 24 hours a day, so they can always find time within 3 months.
That's not, the fine only applies to people above the poverty line. The community service is for everyone. That's the,
You can opt out. If you don't want to pay the fine, you can do service if you're interchangeable.
okay.
Well, are you declaring that amendment from your unfriendly? Okay, so we have to debate that. Okay, well,
But there needs to be a debate in order
yeah,
for it
to actually pass, that's the thing. So, oh gosh, okay. Can I just put it to a vote instead of debating this? Can you motion to suspend rules?
Motion to suspend rules.
Yeah, and this is to vote for the amendments, because I,
rather than debate it.
yeah.
Well,
I do have a second.
The amendment almost sounds like it's redundant.
No.
We still need a vote on it or debating. And since we don't have enough time, we want to vote.
Okay.
Okay, okay, do I have a second for this? Okay, all those in favor for adding the amendment? The amendments read that for section 3, the community service becomes a penalty for all parents, and for section 1, if and only if they are above the poverty line do they have to like pay the fine. Is that it?
No.
To keep the amendment or to?
To add it onto this. The names have it anyway, so sorry.
I'll do con.
Oh, wow. Okay, just,
Do you have notes?
we don't have any.
Huh?
Do you have notes?
Do you have notes? Who has? Oh gosh. Yeah, right now. Sorry, you guys. You guys can subsequent to that time. You will speak tomorrow if this passes bill happens. Okay, 6 minutes. Yeah, you guys. I'm sorry for rushing you like this. It's just that clock started late. I'm pressing time too. Sorry. Okay, chair recognizes. Oh shit. Shayna Cooperman for 6 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to start out with the fact that I am bilaterally hearing impaired. I have a cochlear implant on my left ear and a hearing aid on my right ear, but I do not use any accommodations in school. I'm not really a special needs student, but like I don't have any, note takers. I barely use an FM. I don't have any, talking to text, none of that. And my hearing is something that might not be there all the time. And it could I could go fully deaf. And if I can't hear in class, how can I get an A on the test? And that could result in a D or an F on the report card. Now that hasn't happened yet, but it could, and I would feel kind of, not really ostracized, but I would feel like I wouldn't have an equal opportunity to do well in school if that would happen to me, and to have to pay a fine on top of that, it's like, why do I have to pay because I can't do the same thing that you can? Like, that's not equal opportunity, and America is based on the ideals of equal opportunity. My other point is that when does failure become a bad thing? Like, oftentimes people rise from the ashes, and sometimes you need to fail to see that where you need to go becomes clear when you fail. And I think that if you make people have to pay or do community service, they get scared. And fear is a motivator, but motivation by fear can lead to resentment, and that may lead to a lack of work ethic one day. And I think that if you are motivated because you care, like, you know, the system that we have now, that leads to people who are more dedicated to their cause because they care. They want to do well because they care, and not because they're being forced to because they have to pay. And also, if you live in a lower income neighborhood, maybe a school can't afford good teachers. And I know that my opponent said that it's not always the teacher's fault, but I recently listened to a person who taught at Teach for America, and they teach kids in low-income neighborhoods for 2 years, and she remarked that these teachers in these low-income neighborhoods, the reason why these schools were so bad was because these teachers gave up. The kids did not understand that they needed to do well. They were not educated to know that education is important. And these kids did really well under her because she was pushing them and she was making them work hard. But the teachers in these low-income neighborhoods, they were not pushing the kids. So if the kids aren't motivated, then why would they have to be doing community service if the teachers are not doing their job? So that would be unfair to them. And also, I would like to say that this past year, my grandparents fell ill. Actually, 2 of them died within 2 months. And it was very hard for me. And I managed to hold on because I had a very good support circle. But what if those were your parents? Or what if those were those people who died, what if they were your only support? That could lead to someone not being able to focus. Maybe those 2 parents were the reason why you got up in the morning and went to school. Like, if those people are gone, then you lose motivation, or you're sad, or you can't focus all your time on studying. Well, then you get a D, you get an F, and you have to pay for it. So I think that this bill does not consider all of the possibilities that can happen in people's lives. Like, in theory, it's a great idea. We need to raise our education, and we need to raise our math and science scores. But I think that this bill needs to be more conscious of individuals and circumstances in their lives. And I agree with my friend.
I was just wondering, use the example of how, like, you're deaf and how, like, maybe, like, you would fail or do bad in class because you weren't able to hear. But in situations like that, are you saying that you, like, the second you figured out that you were, like, or someone in that situation was completely deaf and they couldn't hear at all, they would just continue the class knowing they were deaf and just accept the F? Or, like, I don't understand how someone becoming deaf all of a sudden would change their entire, well, they would let it just change their entire grade.
Well, I know that because I have this hearing impairment, it makes me want to be more like everyone else. So if I were to become deaf, I would not want to stop. Like, I would want to keep being with my friends and keep being with society. I wouldn't want to be left out of that type of thing. So I don't know about, like, you know, the whole world, but I know a lot of people who I've talked to, they're all about, you know, just trying to stay with everybody else, and they'll fail at that.
Okay, I'm going to just, time